And here's a place you and I have not been in a very long time. A Land Rover. Well, this one's a Range Rover, but either way, it's a Land Rover. Evoque. This is the mid-cycle refresh. And I gotta say, man, this is a very nice place to be on the inside, mainly because of color and trim.
I mean, there were some other really well-designed cars. The new Evoque is nice.
The interior of that with the wool.
So different.
Wow, does it look good? I think more cars need to do this. The only one that I know that's doing it now is Volvo's got that like check pattern. It is awesome. More companies need to do this. A little bit behind the scenes here about Land Rover and Range Rover. So do you guys remember way back in the day when we did the curb concept? That was a Hyundai product. Well, I worked with their color and trim person to select the color as well as some of the interior bits of that concept car. Her name, Amy Frischella. She now works for Land Rover doing color and trim, so it's kind of like the band is back together. And then the exterior of this vehicle is to take it a step further. Her husband, Massimo, he runs Land Rover exterior design. Great guy, incredibly talented designer. Well, he used to work on the other side of this Chinese wall at the design studio in Irvine before Kia had their own design studio. And he was working on in Kia exterior. So when all that stuff was going on, like when Kia was taking off, that was all Massimo. He went over to Land Rover and he's doing all the exterior stuff here, working under Jerry. Again, outlier. I'm looking for outliers. An outlier to me is someone that uses something as simple as color and trim to make the interior stand out. And that's so hard nowadays because we look at so many cars and they use the cheap plastics or they use a very nice leather, but it's leather. And very few people, it's only Land Rover and Volvo are doing cloth like that.
Yeah. And Volvo's going to do more of it too.
I hope so. So what does that process mean in practice? Well, this is not the forum for us to do a bunch of first drive reviews on all these cars that are assembled in one place. This is really an opportunity for us to drive the different cars and look for outliers in their specific category. So in this case, the Land Rover Range Rover, this would be a utility or a luxury vehicle.
I wasn't crazy about how it drove, but I loved the way the Mazda 3 looks, because for that segment...
Now, why don't you like the way that car drives?
It was all right.
It was all right.
Yeah, in a sense, there was nothing wrong that I could say, oh, I hated that. But there was nothing that got me excited either.
What in that segment do you like better?
Well, I mean, in our part of the world, that segment's very different. So I don't know how you define it here.
Well, half the viewers are that part of the world.
No, so what would you consider its two big rivals?
A competitor is a Corolla and a Elantra.
Yeah, so in our case, those become bigger, more premium, luxurious products by comparison to the hatchback space, which becomes more about stuff like the Hyundai i20 and...
So you would rather have, you think the Hyundai i20 is a better car to drive?
In terms of its handling, yes, but it also depends on what engine you put in there, because I'm told that the Mazdas have some turbocharged engines that are much nicer than
that 2.5 normally aspirated, not great. Now you would think, because I let Coleman and his wife drive an AMG GTC, they would be kind enough to send a CX30, which currently isn't available in the US, but there's a story there. You see, Coleman didn't send this CX30. It turns out the CX30 is on offer in other parts of the world before the US. And you can imagine trying to assemble all these cars that are either not yet available in the US or not at all available in the US in one city in the US is difficult. So it's kind of like negotiating, and the World Car folks were able to get a CX30 from the folks in Mexico, but made a whole deal with it where one of the jurors in Mexico drove this car from Mexico to Los Angeles. But there's a further catch. Right as he's getting to the border, like barely just into the US, hits a rock and cracks the windshield. So as much as I'd love to blame Coleman for this, I can't. With that, CX30 in its natural environment on the freeway here, let's accelerate. It's a Mazda, man. It's got definitely more oomph than that T-Cross and the Venue that we recently drove on the same road, about an hour ago. But this is not competing with those cars.
Same thing with the CX30. I love the handling on the car, but we got that car from Mexico, and we were just lucky to even have it because Mazda USA wasn't ready with the car.
I think that car is going to change when they're going to do a variable compression engine in that car. I think that's going to knock it out of the park. I drove an early production mule of that. It was significantly better.
On the CX30?
The Mazda 3.
They actually were preparing the cars for the US media test drive over at Mazda today. I don't know if I'm supposed to talk about this.
Well, I'm going on that, so yes.
And so I got to drive one of those around the block a couple of times.
Today?
Yeah. And
before I did. Now I'm hurt. I guess I got to be a director on World Car so I can drive cars early. It's a fussy interior. Whew. I like this. I like this. I like the general design. The screens themselves are actually, they work really well. I don't know how much about like the white background. That's a bit of a problem. This ain't gonna come as a surprise to you, but what a magnificent place on the inside. And yes, we know Mazda's been working on this as of late. This is part and parcel to the work that Ken Soward and his team and Irvine are doing. But something stands out here because this segment usually has crappy interiors. Like you look at some of the stuff from Ford and GM, where here the tactile feel is great, but look at the color and trim. I don't know if you can tell from that camera up there, but that's brown. Brown with black here, and it cascades through the doors. I gotta tell you, man, this is a step up in a segment people wouldn't think. It has kind of a faux suede headliner. There's some beautiful bright work here that's not specifically chrome. It's a satin finish chrome like here and here. Nice touch there. I'm really fussed though by the lack of buttons. Like there's a great huge knobs and here, and they've got these controllers here, but they need to be real hard buttons, not this haptic feedback. That's my feedback back to Massimo and Amy. Mazda's gonna clean up, man. That's just the first impressions I have of this thing. Right now, the CX-30 that they sell in this segment, it's a good car, but it's a lot of money for that segment, and people are really price sensitive in this segment. And as a result, other cars like the Escape does very well. But Mazda, they put a lot of work into the CX-5, and as such, it is A, their bestseller, and B, one of the biggest cars in that segment. If I'm reading the tea leaves correctly, if this is priced right, this will be one of the bigger cars in the segment.